Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing a wrap-up of weeks 9 through 13. After taking March off from filming, I have many weeks to wrap up, but not that many books. I didn't read a ton while I took a vacation from filming because I just was quite busy in life, but I do have some things to wrap up and pretty much exclusively comfort reads, so let's get to it. First, I finished Network Effect by Martha Wells, which is, I believe, the 5th book in the Murderbot series. And this is actually a reread that my husband Sush and I decided to do together. I read this out loud to him because Kristen at Kristen L SFF Reader, who I will link below, had made a post and mentioned that she was rereading this before going on to the 6th book, which we had wanted to pick up because the 6th book takes place directly following the events of the 5th book. And we hadn't realized that, so we thought, oh, well, let's do a reread first as well. And very glad that we did, not only because it really, you truly do just continue directly onto book 6. It's more of a continuation of the same sort of extended plot, but also just because it was lovely to be in this book again. We'd given it 5 stars the first time, and I gave it 5 stars again. It's just a ton of fun. I love Murderbots. I love the interactions that it has with all of these other humans as well as other bots, and it's just such a fun, action-packed joy to read. So following off of that, we read System Collapse by Martha Wells, which is the 6th book in the Murderbot series. And this was, again, just such a lovely read. I love reading these out loud to Sush, and just we have so much fun with it. I love the characters, get so immersed in it, and it's always got a really interesting plot. This one has almost like a creepy horror type of feel to the beginning of it, with these like abandoned kind of areas that they're exploring, but it is just a lot of fun. And always the dynamics, the kind of character interactions are what make this super cool, plus all of the cool action. There's a ton of action in these, and I'm not usually an action person, but these are very cool action. So yeah, I just have fun with this. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And just, again, I love Murderbot's connection to other people in this. And it really makes the series just so perfect. So even when I haven't been up to reading much, this just completely grabbed my attention. Then I picked up 2 books in a new series by a favorite author of mine, Dead Tired Volumes 1 and 2 by Raven's Dagger. Raven's Dagger is a self-published like lit RPG author who writes some really fantastic, cozy fantasy and sci-fi. I love Fluff, especially. I have a review for that series, so I'll link it down below. And I just needed something comforting that I knew would work for me and be gentle, so I went to this series, and it was definitely fun. So this is basically a story set in sort of a fantasy world where there is a necromancer who kind of maxes out all of his levels. He can't grow anymore, and he's sort of tired of the world, so he decides to just go to sleep. And he's asleep for maybe a couple thousand years, and then he gets woken up. He's a little bit reluctant to get up at that point, but he's like, fine, let me go see what's going on with the world. And then he sees that a lot of things aren't how he thinks they should be. And so he goes around fixing them. And he's a little bit of this kind of scholar type who just is very curious and wants to see how everything works. But as he goes, he kind of picks up different people. So a little bit of a found family vibe, but it's very strange. And just the characters, again, are what make Raven's Dagger's writing so good. I think that the first book was just a little bit slower and didn't quite have as much in terms of the character dynamics built in. So it wasn't quite as much favorite of mine as the second. So the first one I gave 3.5 stars. The second I gave 4 stars, but I'm definitely interested in continuing. The magic in this is really fun. All of this necromantic magic, but with like kind of cutesy things as well. And sometimes a lot of puns. I don't love puns, so the series does have a lot of puns. But yeah, so this was really something that was easy to read for me when I wasn't in the mood to read very much. Then I started just picking up romance because romance is my go-to genre when I'm really not in the mood to pick up anything. So I started with Wrapped Up in You by Talia Hibbert, which is a Christmas contemporary novella about basically friends to lovers. It's about a guy who is a movie star, like kind of think Marvel superhero type of things. But he's done with that and he's like, you know what, it's fine. I want to go back to England and kind of pursue my childhood friend who I think I really have feelings for, and trying to convince her, but she's somebody who's like very reluctant. She's gone through a bad divorce and she's just not really open to things, but they find a way. It's definitely got a lot of cuteness. It's got some really sweet dynamics. It's a novella, so it's pretty short. I don't know that it like deeply reached me, but I did have a fun time with it, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up another contemporary novella by a favorite romance author, The Reluctant Heartthrob by Jackie Lau. This is a sequel to the Sitcom star, so it's the second book in her Choose Restaurant series, and I loved this. This was so good. This was just exactly what I needed. Really beautiful characters. It's about a guy who's in this TV series and he never really wanted to be considered like the hot guy, but that's kind of what he's been labeled as. He's a very kind of grumpy and shy and introverted person, but he meets this woman who he keeps running into at a cafe that they both frequent, and they kind of have a one-night stand, but he can't get her out of his mind, and so he, you know, tries to pursue her, and they get involved, even though she's also a little bit reluctant because she's been burned in the past. I loved the characters in this, the grumpy but really soft cinnamon roll hero, the heroine who is just very sure of what she needs and what she wants. She's autistic and she is very straightforward about, hey, these are the things I feel comfortable with, these are the things that I don't. I'm not willing to put up with anybody who doesn't value me for who I am, and I've dealt with that in relationships in the past. I'm not dealing with it. And so he's like, cool, well, we're on the same page. And like, I just loved the communication. I loved the way that they just really worked through kind of their own issues, and like the lack of a third act breakup was perfect for me. I love just kind of people working through their own issues and working through things, but really valuing each other and acting like adults. So I loved this. This was perfect for me, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up another new release romance by a favorite author, Yours Forever by Leonor Soliz. This is about 2 characters who go to Vegas, get really drunk, end up getting married, don't fully remember what they made choices about, but then kind of piece it together and recognize that, oh, we need to stay married for at least a while. Basically, the hero is somebody who's quite rich, but in order to get his inheritance, he needs to be married for at least a year and a half. And the heroine is the owner of a small coffee shop in a small little town, Laguna Island, where some of Soliz's other novels are set. And so they decide, sure, we're going to do fake marriage, but really they're going to be together, living together for a year and a half, and they end up, you know, kind of having feelings for each other. The hero especially would really like it to be a real marriage, but the heroine's quite reluctant. It's a very slow burn romance. I think there's a little bit more drama in this than I like, but even so, I like the way that kind of things slowly develop. The small town setting is really sweet. I love this town that Soliz has been built up, this Laguna Island town. There's a lot in this also about like Chilean heritage and culture, and there's some like really cool aspects of it. The hero isn't my favorite type. He's a little bit of somebody who loves to be in the spotlight, loves to dress really snazzy, super rich, throws his money around. Not really so much my type, but I think also that's part of the opposites attract thing. So there were some parts of this that weren't quite so much for me, but then a lot of other parts that I think were just really solid writing, really good setting, and interesting development slowly of the romance. So I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then lastly, I picked up The Devil Comes Courting by Courtney Milan. So I picked this up after seeing a review by Danielle on Goodreads for this, so I'll link that review below. And she raved about how good this book was. And I thought, you know what, I've been meaning to give Courtney Milan a try, so let me give this one a shot and see, especially because it's ticking some of my boxes, since it's a historical romance that is set in China in the kind of around, I would say maybe 1870s. And I always love historical romances, especially when they're set in a place that you don't usually see romances set in. So I thought this will be really cool. And it was so good. So Danielle was spot on with her review. This was fantastic. Basically, it is about a hero who is a black captain of a ship who has been through the Civil War, lost a bunch of his brothers to that, dealing with a bunch of grief and trying to navigate sort of how to handle that. And one of the ways that he's doing it is he is trying to build a trans-Pacific cable for telegrams, because this was a dream that he and his brothers had. So he's kind of trying to work through that grief while building this cable. And one of his big goals is to find a way to get a telegraph system working for Chinese characters. And so he needs to find somebody who can invent that system, and he comes across the heroine. The heroine is somebody who is a little bit of a genius. She's kind of absent-minded. She's been raised by British missionaries, but she's actually Chinese, so she was taken in as a young child, and that has put her very much in between worlds. She doesn't really fit in with the kind of missionary expat type of community, but she definitely doesn't fit in with the Chinese community. She's trying to find her path, and also just really wants to somehow find her birth mother as well. But she's also kind of this genius and has been working on, as a fun thing, inventing a code for telegraph systems for Chinese. And so she gets hired by the captain. And this story is fantastic because not only is it this super slow burn romance, because it takes place over about 2 years as they get the telegraph line built and the code developed, but it's also got all of this really cool history. It's got all of this fantastic stuff about culture and family, lots of really big questions about how you relate to different family members and deal with grief, deal with loss, all of these sorts of questions. It's got a ton about just kind of the dynamics of colonialism. It's got a ton of really cool things about the telegraph line. I mean, so many cool things. And it's got such great characters. I loved the characters. The heroine especially is hilarious. Oh my gosh, I was laughing so hard throughout so many parts in this book because she just does stuff that you're totally not expecting. She was fantastic. But the further you go into the book, also the deeper the emotional connection to all the characters is, and they're dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. And just, you know, I also cried a ton at this book because they were just dealing with some really hard topics of, you know, grief and loss and family connections. And so it was super moving. I loved the romance. I loved the development of it, the plot, everything. So this was fantastic. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and now I've started, this is actually technically the 3rd book in a series, so now I've started at the 1st book and I plan to read the rest of it as well. So I loved this and I really do recommend it. Okay, so those are all of the books that I read while I was kind of off from filming in March. Not that many books, and really they were all comfort reads. And I wanted to talk just about my plans for April, because April is going to be also really intense for me. So March I knew was going to be really busy. It was even busier than I anticipated because lots of unexpected things happened, like a couple of appliances in our house unexpectedly broke. Like, what is even going on, you guys? Like, this does not need to happen right now. So there's been a lot going on, and April looks like it's going to be also really, really busy. I'm still exhausted. I have not been reading hardly at all. As you can see, it's just comfort reads when I do pick anything up. So I think that I'm going to take April off from filming as well, just to give myself the space, because I also have no spoons, no energy to do anything right now, and see if at the end of April things have kind of calmed down, if I have a little bit more just mental energy, and kind of see where I am. So I'll reevaluate at the end of April, come back maybe beginning mid-May with a video wrapping up what I've read, and figure out what is manageable for me for filming going forward, because yeah, I can't, there's not much to film if I'm not reading, and also if I don't have the energy to just sit down and film and edit. So in any case, that is what I've read. That's my plan for the next month going forward. So not too many videos for me, unfortunately, but hopefully I'll get back in the rhythm once things slow down in life a little bit. If you guys have read any of the books that I talked about today, if you're interested in them, if you want to let me know what you've been reading throughout March, I would love to hear it. Just leave me a comment down below.